Oh man, so we're out here today at the marsh shooting some birds. There's a couple of birds in flight that I missed. That right there is an Alai Ula. He's right behind me, just squawking at us like, get out of my marsh. But we're out here today testing out the 300mm G Master lens from Sony. I'm renting it from Sony Pro Support, so it's a 1-week free rental. We're going to be testing this guy out for wildlife photography, and I've been eyeing out this lens for a while because for a while I shot primarily most of my wildlife photography with the 100 to 400 G Master. Sometimes I would use the Sigma 150 to 600 as well, and that 100 to 400 is a great wildlife lens. It's also a really versatile telephoto zoom lens for landscape photography because you can kind of punch in on your subjects. But it kind of sits in a weird spot for me for wildlife photography because while it does have the versatility of the zoom range from 100 to 400 millimeters, it doesn't quite have a big enough aperture to photograph wildlife the best, I would say. The aperture range is f4.5 to 5.6, so in low light situations doesn't necessarily perform at its best. I mean, you can get away with it for opportunistic wildlife photography, but I'm starting to kind of fall out of love with that lens. And in terms of like, a lens or a telephoto lens for landscape photography, even though it's pretty compact, it still kind of is a little bit on the heavier side. So I'm not too much of a fan of how that lens performs. But anyways, there's a Alai KO coming towards us. So let's see if we can nab a shot of this guy here. Now, the limiting factor, of course, with this lens is it's fixed at 300 millimeters. Now, I don't know if 300 millimeters is enough for wildlife photography. When the wildlife is this close to me, right as it is right now, it's definitely enough. But there might be other situations where we got to punch in a little bit more. And that's where the teleconverters from Sony also come in. So I've also rented a couple of these guys, 1.4 teleconverter and the 2X teleconverter. And these things haven't gotten the best reviews in the past. They work relatively well on the expensive prime lenses like the 400 and the 600, but other stuff, mixed reviews, I would say. But this lens, the 300mm G Master, is kind of their latest invention from Sony. So it has like the best autofocusing system, fastest autofocusing system. It's supposed to be one of the sharper lenses in Sony's lineup as well. Of course, we're going to be testing that too. So, slapping on the teleconverter is actually supposed to be pretty usable for this lens. So in this video, we're going to be testing out the 300mm G Master with the teleconverters for wildlife photography mostly, to just try and determine whether or not it'd be worth upgrading for. So we've got like a lot of questions to answer in this video, and we're going to try and answer them as best as we can. The first question is, can I live with primarily shooting wildlife with a prime lens? Now, up until this point, I had the versatility of the 100 to 400, but I feel like most of my wildlife photography was primarily shot at the telephoto end at like 400 millimeters. So we'll kind of see. And we'll also have to kind of test to see if 300 millimeters is the right focal length for the wildlife photography that I want to do, which is mostly birds, but possibly some other stuff coming up in the future. We'll kind of talk about our plans for this setup coming up. And then, of course, also kind of tests the workflow of like working with teleconverters, because yeah, in the off chances where I am trying to switch lenses, like how much of a bitch is it to swap to a teleconverter and keep shooting, or is it just kind of like a process that isn't even worth bothering trying to do? So yeah, there's definitely going to be changes to the workflow in that sense. The other question that we might have with using the teleconverters is, of course, how the autofocus performs, how the sharpness performs, and even with the teleconverter on, you do get a little bit of that light reduction.
The question that I was trying to ask before I got distracted by these birds was, does the light reduction of the teleconverters negate the benefits of having a 2.8 prime lens in the first place? We will get into all the technical details a bit later in this video.
So I'm shooting most of this stuff with the original Alpha 1. I don't have the Alpha 1 Mark II just yet. So the autofocus, I think, for stills is going to be fine, but for video, we don't have that animal eye autofocus as of just yet, so the video with this lens might not be as great as as I eventually will have. We're gonna spend the morning here just shooting birds with a variety of different combinations. 300mm alone, 1.4 teleconverter, 2x teleconverter, and just kind of see how it goes here. And then we're also tomorrow flying out to the Big Island to photograph the Hawaiian short-eared owl again, the pueo. Definitely going to use this setup for that. And hopefully we'll also be able to get a shot of the Hawaiian hawk, or the eel. I did try to photograph one. The last time we were there, it was kind of more of like an opportunistic kind of thing where it was just randomly flying over our Airbnb as we were checking out, but I didn't get that great of a shot of it. So hopefully we'll be able to grab a shot of that with this setup, because yeah, that'd be pretty freaking awesome to get. Man, this is why this is my favorite spot for wildlife photography. It's like this black crowned night heron, or I believe the Hawaiian name is a ku'u, but he's perched right up top, right on this tree. So I'm hanging out right below him, and it's like the perfect setup to get him kind of like grooming himself, like doing a quick touch up here. Video is with the 300mm G Master plus the 2x teleconverter, so a 600 f5.6 lens. But man, look at that footage. It looks so good, so crispy. Ah, here comes the rain. Oh well, Sony weather sealing, here we go. This shot is gonna look awesome because we've got raindrops falling. There's a light KO coming towards us, so all those raindrops are turning into nice bokeh balls. Oh man, this is awesome. And yeah, I'm shooting this 1/1000th of a second, 600mm punched into crop mode, so add 1.5x on top of that as well.
Overall, I was pretty impressed by these initial test shots with the 2x teleconverter. In terms of sharpness, I found these images to be pretty acceptable, even when shooting in crop mode on the Sony Alpha 1. Although, due to the silhouette nature of this shot, it's really hard to punch in and pixel peep on these particular images. The autofocus also worked pretty well to track the bird despite the rain and the harsh light coming from the back. Granted, this bird was also not moving all that fast.
But yeah, with this, just initial impressions with the teleconverter, the autofocus I think does do a little bit worse. It kind of misses here and there, but it's pretty easily correctable. You just got to refocus. But there's an oku'u in flight. Let's see, was I able to grab a shot of him from below? Yes, I was.
This image of the flying aku'u impressed me a little bit more than the previous images. Even with the teleconverter, the bird's eye was tracked well with the autofocus, and overall this image appears pretty sharp.
It focuses not terrible. Like, okay, I would say like natively, the lens with, its autofocus performance, it should be top notch. I would say when you throw on the teleconverters, it is one step down from that. You know, you do have to just realize that your autofocuses might miss with the teleconverter on. The one complaint that I do have about the design is they don't include a dedicated lens cap for this thing, and they recommend that you shoot with the lens hood. And yeah, if you're paying $6,000 for the lens hood, then obviously you should use it. As you can see, I'm not using it because I hate lens hoods because they take up so much space in the camera bag. So you know, it's kind of one of those things where you kind of have to make that choice for yourself. But they do make third-party lens caps for this lens, so I think if I were to end up buying this setup in the future, I probably would end up buying one of those lens caps anyways. So, but hopefully when we get over to the Big Island, we'll be able to grab some better bird in flight shots with the owls and the hawks that will hopefully be able to catch up there. So yeah, I think I'm gonna pack it up here today. We'll see you guys on the Big Island. You know we're taking this trip seriously. We get matching shirts and everything. Where's yours?
No more. I should have bought one, yeah? Like a rat or something.
As you can see, Darwin and I took our bird hunting mission very seriously, and with our Shimoda bags packed to the brim, we headed over to the Big Island with high hopes of capturing these birds.
Hello and welcome to the Elephant Onizuka Kona International Airport here in Keauhalekana on the beautiful island of Hawaii.
All right, first wildlife mission here on the Big Island. We're exploring this one foresty area just a little bit. See if we can find anything.
This first attempt was an absolute bust. The only thing we saw were these fat-ass chickens. But it wasn't a total failure because on our way down from this location, we were able to spot...
So we did get one from very far away. That's definitely a Hawaiian hawk. Had to put on the 600mm, the teleconverter. Not too terrible, but definitely not postable. Darwin is out there trying to look for common birds, aka, what do you call it?
Manchichis.
Manchichis.
Yeah. They're called the manchichis.
Common birds are manchichis. So, if we don't end up seeing anything, I guess we'll be shooting manchichi style the rest of the trip.
After a little bit of post-processing, this hawk image doesn't look too terrible when looked at from far away. However, when zooming in and pixel peeping, it does fall apart. But considering the circumstances, we didn't have a whole lot of light, I was pretty far away from this bird, and using the 2x teleconverter, I was genuinely impressed by the end result.
I bet you the Wi-Fi is
Are you getting the manchichi bangers? Same cow. Same coffee stand.
Hi Airbnb, we're back.
This looks kind of familiar.
After dropping our things off at the exact same Airbnb as our last trip, we headed out in hopes of this time capturing some shots of the pueo, or the Hawaiian short-eared owl.
Well, we're out here on the saddle. Just kind of chilling. Beautiful day out here, it's relatively clear. We did see one coming on our way up, pulled over. So we're just kind of waiting, seeing if it'll circle back or not. But yeah, got to see a hawk, got to see an owl already. Coming back around.
It's just hovering up there.
Got the 300mm with the 2x teleconverter. It's a 600. One landed in the field over here. Just kind of waiting for it to pop back up. We'll see if we can get it. But yeah, what's your strategy, Lemmy, with this trip?
You need to just go close to the house because the rats, they like to eat human food.
Yeah.
And the owls will eat them.
Yeah.
It's like, that's just how it is. Just go over this. No, you're gonna get electrocuted.
Electric fence. Yeah, I mean that's a good strategy. You know, predator, prey. Oh yeah, right there. There's another one. No, those are cattle egrets.
Oh.
Those are the manchichi kind right there. That's the Oahu kind birds.
That's the rubbish bird, that one.
Yeah.
They eat the cow poop.
Yeah.
At one point in time, we thought our luck had run dry, because despite seeing a few owls early on, we were unable to catch a glimpse of them for a fair amount of time. But in true bored photographer fashion, we ended up snapping some portraits and some selfie shots of ourselves in our awesome t-shirts. But as we drove back down the road, our luck took a turn in our favor. Just focus on hunting. Looking at these shots, I was very impressed by the sharpness of the 300mm plus the 2x teleconverter. As you will see coming up, there isn't too much of a hit to sharpness when compared to the lens without the teleconverter.
So we are hanging out of our window. Yeah, it flew away. Where'd it go? Oh yeah, it's hanging out over there. We got one and it might be coming back around here. It might be flying away, but we were able to get some shots of it on a post.
As the light began to fade, I decided to take the teleconverter off to give myself better light gathering at f2.8. Thankfully, that decision to give up some focal length for more light gathering capabilities ended up being the right one.
So there's one on the telephone post right there. We're just approaching on foot to not spook this guy. But we just got some beautiful shots of one on the fence post, and yeah, we'll see if we can catch this one. I'm like sinking into this grass. It'd be nice to get this owl sitting like right above the, like that cinder cone.
Right there, it's on that post.
On the post?
Yeah, it's on the post again.
Where?
Right there, right there, right there.
How far?
What you do? Pass a little bit so we can get the front.
Oh yeah, I see it, I see it.
We continued to chase this owl down the road. While I didn't have my camera filming video, I was able to capture some audio clips from our experience chasing this beautiful bird.
We're just gonna follow this guy all the way down the freaking road.
Next post, it's been the next post.
Unbelievable.
You see it? Right there.
How many opportunities we have to shoot this guy, for real?
It's a blessed day.
Yeah. We don't even have to come back to get this owl anymore.
Yeah, because
We can just hunt hawks the rest of the time. Oh, there he goes again.
We flew again.
Yeah. He's getting more and more like, fuck, this stupid red ass Jeep keeps following me around. I'm just trying to eat, bro.
What time we're gonna go into the ditch?
Here's a side-by-side comparison of the images shot with and without the 2x teleconverter. Can you tell a difference in sharpness? Because personally, I cannot.
So, we just spent like a good 15 minutes chasing this one owl, pretty much post to post. We've got multiple opportunities to photograph him as he hopped from post to post. It's pretty cool. It's pretty awesome. Got some nice stills of him standing there, got some video of him taking off. We're just kind of watching him fly by. But man, that was a really cool experience, just chasing the owl from post to post, driving. Eventually he caught on to us, but for a little while, we got some pretty good shots, I think.
We decided to call it a day and catch the last bit of sunset light over the cinder cone. How's Darwin faking out his wife with the heart? Unbelievable.
All right, so we're ending our day off at this little pullover spot. We've got this nice little cinder cone back here. Sunset looked like it was gonna kick off, so I kind of set up here anticipating that we might be able to get some nice side light on this landscape, but it's not really coming out too well. We're also hoping that maybe there'd be a miracle and we'd be able to get an owl last minute kind, but honestly, I'm not complaining. The owl experience that we got here today was probably hands down the best experience that I've ever had with the Pueo. But yeah, let's hope for some last minute light. I've got the Nikon here set up with the Tamron 28-7. No, this is the 28-200. So the plan was, if I ended up committing to using the 300 GM plus the teleconverters for wildlife, that this would be kind of like the replacement zoom lens for that 70mm to 200-ish. But I think it might even be able to replace the 20-70 in my toolkit. So I don't know. We'll see what this light does.
We actually did end up catching some light after all, but in next week's video we will do an in-depth review of this Tamron lens to see how well it performs as an all-in-one lens for landscape photography.
This stupid shit that we do, I swear. I can't even I'm trying to do a funny bit here. You might recognize that face from my shirt. I could have sworn I said I was trying to downsize, but we just got the Nikon time-lapsing. Just filming a professional video clip with this guy. We've got the wildlife set up here. And got the drone in the air, or was in the air. This is stupid.
The following morning we headed back out to chase some more owls. Relatively quickly, we were able to snag one shot of one, albeit in some pretty dark lighting conditions.
Got a couple of them so far, but none of them really in nice lighting or anything like that. So,
What do you mean?
just gonna continue to drive down the road. And hope that we can get one with this nice morning light.
Yeah, that didn't happen at all. But we did return in the afternoon and was rewarded once again for our efforts. I decided to use the 1.4 teleconverter for these images, but I feel as if I was still a bit too zoomed out to get the best shot possible. But still, here's a side-by-side comparison of all of these images.
To be here
Doing his vlog.
doing his vlog and his camera's upside down.
Got some action already this morning. It's not morning, this evening.
This evening.
Caught one already. Out here again on the
Same spot.
saddle, same spot. About to go look for some more. Hopefully we'll find some time to settle down and talk about this lens and these teleconverters. He's all the way over there and we're all the way back here. But he's the only one that we were seeing so far. We're just kind of waiting him out and seeing where he's gonna end up. Where'd he go? There he is. Just chilling on that fence. Hopefully he comes back. All right, well, we finally get a chance to settle down and
talk about this setup. We did a couple laps up and down the saddle, but couldn't really find a whole lot, but we've got a little bit of light left, so I want to kind of give my concluding thoughts on this setup, the 300mm G Master with the two teleconverters, let me see, where's the 1.4 teleconverter, hopefully you guys can see that there, as well as the 2X teleconverter right there. So functionally, when we just talk about the lens by itself, just the 300mm f2.8 lens, it's a really extremely good lens, extremely sharp, autofocuses extremely well. I think this lens is about a year old from Sony, so I would expect it to kind of perform at its best in terms of like sharpness, autofocus, image quality, that kind of thing. When shooting natively, 300mm is a really, really tight focal length, and at f2.8, it's really, really good. In addition to that, it's really, really bright at f2.8. In terms of handling, size, and weight, it's slightly heavier than my current setup, which is just the 100 to 400 G Master, but the footprint is obviously a little bit bigger. You know, it takes up half the camera cube when it's actually inside the camera bag. With that being said though, it might be I guess a trade-off that I'm willing to make, because to get a professional telephoto prime lens from Sony, before this guy came out, you'd be looking at getting the 400 f2.8 or the 600 f4, and those things are like twice as tall and twice as big as this one. I remember using the 600mm G Master lens, and then that lens is a freaking beast. My arm was so sore after that trip because we were pretty much hand-holding that lens the entire time. So the fact that it's bigger, but it's still relatively small, compact, lightweight, relatively easy to kind of handhold and shoot with, makes it really appealing for me personally as a, I guess, opportunistic wildlife photographer. Now, what makes this lens, I guess, a little bit more versatile than the 400 and the 600 is the fact that you can throw on the teleconverters. And prior to, I guess, this lens coming out, oh, almost dropped that shit because I had my finger on the trigger. That would have been terrible. Hopefully Sony doesn't watch this video, because this is actually their lens. I'll hold it from my camera body from now on, maybe, or hold it from the lens itself. Anyways, what makes this lens relatively versatile for in terms of wildlife photography is the fact that you can put the teleconverters on it. Now, the teleconverters primarily were used, again, with those two prime lenses, the 400 and the 600, because when you were to put these teleconverters on, let's say like the 100 to 400 or the 200 to 600, they would kind of reduce the light a substantial amount, because those f-stops are pretty dark already. I think the 100 to 400 was an f 4.5 to 5.6, so if you were to put, like, let's say the 1.4 teleconverter on, it would turn it into like a 5.6 to like an f8 lens or something like that. So the fact that you've got a 300 f2.8, and with this 1.4 teleconverter, it turns it into a 420mm f4 lens, and then with the 2x teleconverter, it turns it into a 600mm f5.6 lens. While it's still not the brightest lens out there, again, the primes alone by themselves are going to be much brighter and and bring in a lot more light. But the fact that it's brighter than most, I guess, standard zoom lenses makes it really appealing and really versatile. One thing that I forgot to mention in the field was comparing this setup to the 200 to 600 G lens. While that lens is very versatile in terms of its zoom range, the aperture is limited to f5.6 to f6.3, making it not as ideal as the 300mm setup in low light and golden hour, where wildlife activity is usually at its peak. I do, however, like the internal zoom function of the 200 to 600, but that means that the overall footprint is about 2 inches longer and about 1.5 pounds or 30% heavier than the 300 GM. For those two reasons alone, I'll take the 300 GM with the teleconverters any day, even if it is 3 times more expensive.
Now, after shooting owls for a couple of days here on the Big Island, I didn't find it too much of a hassle to change between teleconverters. I primarily would decide what teleconverter I was going to use based off of how much light I had. So
earlier in the evening, as the sun was a little bit more higher in the sky, we had a little bit more light, I'd be shooting with the 2x teleconverter and then convert down to the 1.4 teleconverter when we would lose a little bit more light. And then when we were shooting kind of during blue hour and I guess kind of during those darker times, I would just take all the teleconverters off and just shoot with the 2.8 on the 300mm. And I did the reverse sort of thing when we were shooting sunrise here that one time. And I think it worked out pretty well. 300mm is still a really, really tight focal length for most wildlife shooting scenarios. Obviously, you don't get the 600mm reach, but as long as the owls were relatively close, the 300mm was more than enough focal length to actually get that shot. And in terms of image quality with these teleconverters, they're supposed to degrade your image quality a little bit. I mean, you're putting an extra piece of glass between this like really extremely sharp piece of glass and your camera sensor. So a little bit of image quality loss is to be expected. But actually, when I was shooting with both the 2x and the 1.4 teleconverter, I didn't really notice too much of an image degradation. I'll kind of put some side-by-side comparisons up on the screen right now. But unless you're really zoomed into like those really, really small and minute details, you don't really notice too much of a image quality degradation. And arguably, I would think that that image quality loss is actually from shooting at a lower aperture and having to bump up the ISO a little bit higher than actually losing sharpness and image quality. Now, if you were to put the teleconverters on, let's say something like a 100 to 400 GM or even the 200 to 600, I think because those lenses are relatively older and they're a zoom lens, they're not a prime lens, then you would definitely notice a more significant loss in image quality on those zoom lenses. But because it's a prime, I didn't notice it too much. And even when I did notice it, I think it was primarily just from shooting at those lower f-stops and not having as much light and having to bump my ISO up a little bit higher. And I think aside from the lightweight portability and extremely good image quality with this particular lens, I think kind of one of the main reasons why I wanted to test out and try out the setup was the price. If you're looking at buying something like the 400 or the 600 prime lenses from Sony, you're looking at $10,000 to $12,000 for each of those lenses. This guy is only going to come in at $6,000 if you don't get it on sale. B&H is actually having it on sale if you have a creator account for $4,700, which makes it even a better deal for getting this extremely sharp lens. And when you add on the two teleconverters, you're looking at more of like a $7,000 setup. This lens plus the teleconverters together is cheaper than just one of those bigger prime lenses alone. And you're also looking at paying the price when it comes to like a weight premium. Like those lenses are massive, huge, and gigantic, while this one is smaller, lighter, more compact, easier to kind of maneuver around in the field. And while those lenses are beautiful and perform well at those desired focal lengths, I don't know if lugging around one of those things would be reasonable for kind of the opportunistic wildlife photography that I primarily do. So I think if you are thinking about getting one of the prime lenses for wildlife photography, I think it's kind of hard to not seriously consider the 300 G Master with the teleconverters, just due to how versatile it is, how lightweight and how portable it is, and how well it actually performs with the teleconverters. Because yeah, now that I have used this setup, I'm kind of sold on it. I don't think I will ever try to think about buying one of those bigger prime lenses in the future. And when you pair this setup, this 300 G Master, with something like a all-in-one zoom lens, like what we're shooting our time-lapse on over there. Oop, there it is. That we're shooting that one with the Tamron 28 to 200. I think it really adds that nice coverage that we would be, I guess, kind of losing when we give away or when we sell the 100 to 400 as well as the 20 to 70. That lens will probably replace two of the lenses in my kit, and then this one will kind of be reserved primarily for situations where I need a wildlife photography lens. And I guess the primary reason why I wanted to test this out isn't necessarily because we came here to shoot owls and to chase hawks and that kind of thing. It's actually because we're gearing up for a possible Yellowstone trip next year. So I think that this lens, the teleconverters, paired with the 28 to 200,
that's gonna make for a really awesome setup for Yellowstone National Park. So definitely stay tuned for that video. If you have any questions about this lens, the teleconverters, the performance, the sharpness, and all that kind of stuff, make sure you leave me a comment below and I'll be sure to answer whatever questions that you guys may have. But if you like this type of content, there's travel, vacation, and a little bit of photography education, make sure you hit that like button, comment below, and subscribe if you aren't already. And we'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out.